What's up, YouTube? Hey, Huzefa.
What's up? What's up? How's it going?
Great. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Yeah, this is very exciting. Welcome, everybody. We're doing a dual stream today. We're actually simultaneously streaming on Laura's channel, obviously, and then also on Scalar Learning. So wherever you're joining, welcome to the party. This is a party. This is
Yeah,
the aftermath of finally taking the digital SAT and doing it sort of together on the same day, which is pretty cool.
that's right. Only the cool kids are coming to this party too.
Yeah.
So welcome. Let's just get right into it. Huzefa, what did you think of the test today?
Let's do. Oh, but I want to say one other thing before we get into
Oh,
it. By the
good.
way, Laura took it on the East Coast, right? So I took it on in California. So there was definitely a difference. Yeah, East Coast. I don't have. Oh, by the way, I don't have a West Coast shirt. I was gonna do that, but instead I got triangle theorems. What's up? You got to know your triangle theorems. But yeah, so we took it at different times. I already talked to Laura after I took my test. Drove 2 hours from Santa Barbara, where I had to take it back to LA. Got here about 12 minutes ago, right in time for the stream. So
That's dedication. And you did not get in an accident. You did not get a ticket.
No, we were totally good. I was good. I was safe. Okay, so you asked me, what did I think of the test, right?
Yeah, let's get into it. What'd you think of the test?
Okay, so I just want to let everybody know as well that we're not going to be talking about content. We're not going to be, and please don't post any content or questions about content that you saw today if you did take the SAT. We're going to talk generally about the experience. So I want to say a couple of things before I even dive into the actual test. I want to talk about the setup situation and the proctors and whatnot, because I do think this needs to be said. So I took it at the Hilton Beachfront Hotel in what's called Santa Barbara. The beautiful hotel.
Swanky.
So swanky, yeah. And it was a beautiful hotel. I thought they did a really nice job in terms of setting up the area where students took it. I'll give a couple of notes that I think need to be improved going forward. So the first thing is they had tablecloth down on the tables, which obviously made it really hard to write, for the math section. I'm sure I was really careful, but I'm sure a lot of students probably went through the paper it was terrible. I almost asked to move the tablecloth, but I was like, all right, you know what? I'll just deal with it. Number one. Number two, the proctors, and guys, please, if you're proctoring a test, or College Board, if you're listening, proctors they need to, at a minimum, obviously have their phones silenced. I think they shouldn't even be on their phones at all. We had multiple proctors, well, namely one in particular that I definitely saw multiple times on his phone, and also his phone wasn't silent, so it kept going off. Not like crazy, like the little notifications and the dings, but they're so distracting, and I can't even imagine how distracting it must be for students when they're under that much pressure and stress. So that needs to be fixed. Number three, they had conversations at the front in between each other. Now, they're trying to whisper and trying to be quiet, but you can't do that. It's so distracting if you can hear people talking, at least for me, that I probably lost, a minute and a half or 2 minutes of think time just because I'm confused by that. So I want to put that out there. I hope people don't take this as me being just totally negative, but these are things that need to be fixed and need to be improved to maximize the testing experience. So that's the first.
No.
Yeah.
And can I piggyback off you? Because I agree with that. And I was so fortunate this time. My testing experience today was vastly different. There was only like 20 kids total at my testing site. And I've gone to this site before. It's actually my alma mater where I graduated from high school. So yeah. And the past times I've gone, there's been like 100+ kids, more probably like 200 kids. So it was such a small group. It was so quiet. There was not like, you could hear a pin drop. Like it was literally the ideal testing conditions today for us. But the last time I took the test at that center back in June, they had windows open, motorcycles were driving by, people were like bumping music. Like it was just like, I think sometimes the proctors don't, put themselves in our shoes, and they don't think about the amount of focus that's required to do well on this test. So I agree with you. And the biggest thing I keep saying to students is you got to advocate. And I know it's uncomfortable because they're adults and, you're a teenager and you're a student. Like there's like a different like power dynamic. But like, if you feel like the testing conditions are less than ideal, don't be afraid to raise your hand and speak up and say something and say, hey, can you close the window? Or, hey, like, can I move my seat, or whatever the situation is. But like, it sounds like Huzefa, some of the stuff in your room today were like out of your control. Like you can't be like, hey, can we take the tablecloths up?
I thought about it. I thought about saying that and I didn't. And in retrospect, I should have said something about them talking and about the phone, because no student's going to say anything, right? They're probably too scared and too nervous. I should have done it. And I did think about
Mhm.
it, and I basically just opted. I'd be like, yeah, it's not the end of the world. It wasn't like constantly going off, so I let it slide. But I should have said something. Yeah, but I think it's
Well,
great. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
no, one more thing I wanted to say because of what you just said, it got me thinking. So I think that's another part of this because sometimes there's going to be things outside of your control. And
Mhm.
it's like being able to get in that mindset and that place of acceptance where it's like, all right, it is what it is. I'm just going to take this test anyways and I'm going to dominate it is
Yeah.
super important because it's half a psychological battle. Like it's half knowing the concepts and having the knowledge, but it really is keeping your mind in the right place, like for instance, even just getting a good night's sleep. And like I had a
Mhm.
great night's sleep last night and I woke up today feeling like, all right, I'm going to be on fire today. Like, did you get a good night's sleep? Did you get up early? Like, what was your routine like getting ready for the test?
Yeah, and by the way, I wanted to say this real quick. I'm looking at the comments in the chat. Guys, we cannot talk about question content. So those of you guys like Saman, I think Average Gamer, we can't be doing that. So please do not use the chat to discuss question content that you saw today. Okay, so talk about my routine. So I'll tell you what I did. I followed the advice that I give to my students, which was I had a really healthy dinner. It was loaded with like protein, and I like steak, so I had steak and some seafood and stuff like that. Didn't have any simple carbs. Came back to the hotel room because I stayed at the hotel up in Santa Barbara. I went to bed around 9:30, maybe 10 is when I finally fell asleep. Um, and I usually, so one of the things I say too is like whatever routine you have established, you don't need to deviate from that, and you shouldn't deviate from that, at least not substantially. So I usually do take a supplement to help me sleep. I still took that supplement to help me sleep, and I woke up around 6:50 in the morning. That's another thing that I recommend. Wake up with ample time so you're not rushing to get to the test center. One of the things that happens is if you rush to get to the test center, it spikes your adrenaline. And then eventually when it comes down, let's say around like 8:30 or 9, then you're going to feel a dip in energy. So you want to avoid that. You want to get there nice and early. So I did do that. I also, as part of my daily routine, I drink coffee, drink water, and I intermittent fast. So I don't eat in the morning. So all that stuff I kept consistent. I don't recommend people drink coffee unless it's already part of your routine. But yeah, pretty much everything that I wanted to do leading up to the test was perfect. The prep, the sleep, all the stuff I was dialed in, so I was happy. How about you?
That's awesome. I love that. No, I feel the same way. I took it in June and I'll admit I was a little thrown off with the sun staying out later. Like it
Mhm,
always throws me off when there's time zone changes and stuff
mhm,
like that. So I did not get optimal sleep on the June and it definitely affected me in there, but no, I felt the same way. I did my normal routine. I actually did yoga too, so I'd
mm,
feel like loose and not tight because I have a tendency to get anxiety and then like, tighten up in my shoulders and all that. So I just wanted to make sure I was nice and relaxed before the test. These are things I feel like our students don't think about,
mhm,
like and I have some students who want to cram till like midnight, 1 in the morning. And I'm like, oh my God, like that's the worst thing you could do. And I love using analogies with my students. And I liken a lot of like SAT preparation to like marathon training or like
mhm,
personal training, like in the gym. And I say to them, like, if you're going to run a marathon the next day, are you going to run a marathon at midnight? Like, it just doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? Like, you want to make sure you're ready. But like
100%.
legit, Huzefa, if I get a perfect score on this test, I have to give half of the credit to Starbucks Nitro Cold Brew. Like, I'm not even kidding you. I would have like a few sips before each module. It's like my rocket fuel. I was like completely on it. But I don't recommend that to you guys. If you're not drinking caffeine, please don't think that I'm saying go get a Nitro Cold Brew. Don't do that.
Yeah, but again, if you're accustomed to drinking coffee, it's great, and that's what I did. I just followed my routine. Another thing I will say too, right? We mentioned the idea of ideally cramming up till midnight the Friday before is not a good move, unless there's one exception, and that is if you are starting your preparation process the Wednesday before, which I know people do. I know some people barely prepare. So if you're in that rare category of like, hey, I'm not going to do anything until like right before the test, okay, then fine. You want to cram? It's like it's your only option, but obviously ultimately that's not how you should be approaching this test. You should be doing months of preparation. Whether or not you work with the tutor is irrelevant in terms of the time you spend. You should be doing loads of practice problems, loads of material to get you familiar with both, well, I'm talking math specifically, the math concepts, as well as the layout of the questions, the language, the traps that the College Board likes to set. So you want to get familiar with all of that and give yourself enough of a runway. But yeah, again, in that one exception where you've done nothing and you're just showing up, basically, fine, you can cram.
Can I just touch on a comment that I saw come through?
Yeah.
So A Juice 101 said, was math easy or only me?
Mm.
So I want to touch on that because Huzefa and I were on the phone when he was driving home, talking about it a little bit before the video.
Yeah.
And for one thing, we definitely got different tests, and you guys will get different tests. I want to say right now, College Board just had a conference last week. Shout out to Michael Jordan for telling me this, of Michael Jordan Prep. They tested 155,000 unique questions just this past spring alone. So there's a parent questions that's a subset that they basically design a whole bunch of unique questions off of. So it's all about pattern recognition and figuring out from those parent questions how to do them. But I just want to say as a caveat, we got different tests. He's West Coast, I'm East Coast. Honestly, I thought the math was easy today. Huzefa.
Yeah, so I definitely
did you
did
think?
not, and no, yeah, I'll definitely tell you. But and by the way, guys, keep the questions coming. I'm also looking at the chat too, so that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Juice, that was Juice, right? That asked that question. Thank A Juice or whatever. Thank you for asking that question. Appreciate it. So I'll say, in terms of my experience, to me, and I don't know, and this may be my own bias. Okay, so don't take my word for it. I had another student that felt differently that also took the test in California. Okay, that didn't feel that it was, but I personally felt like that was the hardest math section that I've ever seen. So, and I'll tell you why I felt that way. It's like, I think a lot of the times I'm basing my rating or ranking of the difficulty of a math section is especially on like the hard problems. And I felt like the very hard problems on module 2, actually, I even felt like module 1 was a little bit harder than traditionally what I've seen on the practice tests and whatnot. But
Okay.
module 2 had several problems that I thought were quite difficult, and also different. I mean, obviously, it's within the realm of like the SAT math universe, but different question types or parent question types is the way you put it than what I've ever seen before. So I had to think on my feet. I was actually smiling to myself when I got those questions. I was like, "Ooh, okay, they're throwing in a little curveball here in the last 5 questions with some of the problems that they gave." So, or they gave ones that were similar to ones I've seen before, but they definitely upped the difficulty. And when I say up the difficulty, a lot of times what I mean, I'm talking specifically on math. That's, my domain. I can't talk intelligently about the English. I'll let Laura do that. But in terms of the math, now they're compounding. Maybe it was a 2-part hybrid problem, right? Let's say using special right triangles and geometry now to maybe a 3-part hybrid. So they're throwing in one additional concept, something like that. So that's what I kind of felt like they had done. So I thought it was very difficult. I'd love to hear what other people think as well in the comments.
Yeah. And, it's funny that you say that about they'll throw in a third part, because I feel like seeing how the SAT will take a concept and just flip it on its head and then do that little curveball. I try to do that in sessions with my students. So like last night, I was like doing a last minute review with one of my students. We were throwing a bunch of stuff up on this board here. I don't know if you guys can see it.
Okay, let me
Can you
see.
see all
Oh,
the
cool. Yeah.
scribbles? That's our review. That's our review from last night.
Okay, right
So
on.
as
So you guys
we
reviewed
were
till midnight, huh?
No. Till 6:00. Till 6:00. I was
Okay.
in bed the same time as you.
Okay.
But when I was reviewing with her, I was literally trying to do that, where we would go over those concepts that continue to show up on the tests, but I would just try to flow or throw a curveball at her and just say, okay, what would you do if they did this instead? Because I think it's important for us as tutors to anticipate what's the next move. Like, how are they going to add that wrinkle to this concept now so that it's coming at them at a different angle? Because if you're not flexible and you don't have the fundamentals down on the math, it's going to be really difficult for you to be able to adapt to these curveballs.
Yep.
This isn't like math class where the teacher gives you a cookie cutter problem and then changes the numbers and says, okay, now you do it again. You know what I mean? It's not like that, right?
100%. Yeah, you have to be adaptable. I think also getting more flexibility with utilizing Desmos. Like, for example, a lot of the really tough problems, with the
Mhm.
exception of like some ones that just where Desmos didn't make sense, but I was able to go back, let's say like the first time through, because I try to do every problem at least twice. And so the first time through, maybe I did it by hand or did something else. Whatever, maybe even did it mentally. And then the second pass through, I'm like, okay, I'm going to use Desmos heavily and see if I can verify or validate my answer. So getting more and more flexible with Desmos is going to be really helpful. I'm going to make another like huge Desmos video at some point, just from everything I've learned in the last few
Mhm.
months. But yeah, I think that's really valuable. I will also say too that I do think the College Board question bank is pretty underrated as well as an additional study tool, because
So underrated. And
yeah,
they just
like,
added more questions. Did you hear that?
oh
They
no, I
just
didn't.
added more questions this week.
Well, that's amazing. Do you know how many?
Yes. No, I don't know how many. And I went into it to see if we could filter to the new questions, and we can't. They added a
Okay.
new feature where you can filter to your state standards.
Okay.
But, I heard that there's new questions in there, and I agree with you. Like, I think
Mhm.
that they use those question bank
Mhm.
questions and
For
then add
sure.
those little curveballs. Can I just say something before you continue?
Yeah,
Because
go ahead.
you touched on something that I have to stress, because I am on the same page with you, and we
Mhm.
both have scored perfect on the math on official
Mhm.
tests before. I
Mhm.
also went back to every math question and redid it. And I
Mhm.
also went back to every math question and did it with a different approach.
Mhm.
And I think that that is so key. Like, if you're trying to get a perfect score on the math, because when I did that today, I caught Huzefa a couple
Mhm.
mistakes. And I was like,
Yep.
oh man, like I would have gotten like a 760 or 770 if I didn't catch those. But like, that's really what's required. And sometimes I have students come to me and they're like, Laura, I want a perfect score on the math. And then I tell them that they have to do that, or that they should do that. And they're like, I think I'll be okay with a 750. Like, they're not willing to go back and do it again. I'm like this is like a test for people with grit and grind and determination. And if you
Mhm.
can grind it out, you will get an awesome score, you know? Like,
That's a really good point. I didn't even ever think about it in exactly those terms, but that's a really
mhm,
good point, that some people might even be able to get an 800, but to just go through that exertion of energy is just too much at that point. And they're just like, you know what, I'm
mhm.
good. I'm just going to sit here for the last 5 minutes. Cause even I feel like that sometimes. I'm like, oh, I gotta go through
Yeah,
this again.
but
I had to, yeah. Oh, go ahead.
well, I just want to say, well, here is the thing. So it's funny
Mhm.
that you say that, because I'm sure you're probably the same way. It was module one math. I finished with
Mhm.
20 minutes left.
Mhm. Mhm.
And they
Mhm.
don't let you move on. Like, you
Yeah.
literally you have 2 options. You sit there and you watch the clock tick down and twiddle
Mhm.
your thumbs, or
Yeah.
you go back and you make that the most productive 20 minutes you've ever made it. And
Mhm.
so,
Mhm.
like at that point, it's like, for me, it's a no-brainer. Like, go back and check your work. Like, what else are you going to do? You know what I mean? Like, sorry, go
100%.
ahead.
No, that's exactly right. Yeah, I mean, you could take what's called an unscheduled bathroom break, but I would not recommend that. I did the problems. Okay, think about it like this. Think about the amount of hours at this point I've logged for this test and for just like math in general over the last 12 years. It's insane, right? Like, Laura knows how much I work. I tutor an insane amount. I'm like doing math most of my waking hours. I'm doing math in some way or shape or form, right? And that being said, as comfortable and familiar I am with the test language, with the question types, I still will do. I did every question on mod one 3 times. And the last pass through, I was like, "Ah, I didn't want to do it, but I did it, right? I'm going to do it because I know that's, if you really want to try and get an 800, it doesn't matter what level you're at. Like, you can make silly mistakes. So recanvassing
Mhm.
that material is fantastic. Also doing a great thorough job the first time through is good as well. But I think recanvassing that to whatever extent as possible is great. Now, module two, I normally don't have as much of a cushion, so I can't hit it 3 times. I think I hit every problem twice though.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I felt pretty good. There may have been some that I wasn't able to go through twice, because there were some
right.
really tough ones that I spent a little bit more time on. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, you gotta
Right.
just. I think that's such a great point. Use your will, use your grit, and just keep pushing.
Uh-huh, exactly. Now with the English, what I typically tell students is, if you're confident in your answer on a question, don't go back to it. Because if you go back to an English question that you were confident in, all you're doing is opening up the door to
Mhm.
changing a right answer to a wrong answer and overthinking, just overthinking it. to the death. So don't do that on the English, but make sure on the English, the ones that you're not confident in, you're flagging to go back to. So, speaking of the English, I just wanted to speak on the main point that I noticed with the English, which was I've sat in on a few tests now, right? And what was interesting to me today was there was plenty of questions I've already seen that same storyline or context for. So although they changed the question and they changed the answers, I already had a background and the seed had been planted. So I already knew the background story to this context. It made it so much easier to do the reading questions today, just having an exposure to some of them, because they do take from the parent questions, they do have repeat storylines, and then they just change the question, the answers. So if there is one other thing I could impart on everybody watching this today, take as many official tests as you can, which is something I used to not say when I was tutoring the paper test because I was afraid of test taking burnout. But I really think the more exposure you get to these official unreleased questions, the better off you're going to be. And also, I personally, if you're out there and you're struggling on Module 2 English and you're running out of time, I was tight on time, guys. Like all last year when I was tutoring this, I would finish, the last question, I would have to rush it every time. I swear I figured out a strategy and the English has gone so much faster. I finished module 2 today with 10 minutes to spare and I already went back through all the questions I need to go back through. So I'm going to run a crash course, just a heads up. It's going to be the week before the December test. It's a 2-hour reading crash course. So I'm going to basically reveal what I did. I'm really excited. I'll try to put the link in the description after the video or something, but you can go to my website, strategictestprep.com, and to our events page and you'll see it. But anyways, sorry, I feel like I was just dominating, but I had to speak on the English, and I know you probably don't have much to add with the English, so I had to get that in.
I can add something too, but
Go ahead.
First of all, I want to take this crash course because I want to take the SAT again many times.
I want to
see it. Let's see what I could do. Last time I got a 710 because I took the test in October. And by the way, guys, I know you guys have all these fantastic questions that are coming in, and we're gonna get to all your questions. So keep them rolling. We're gonna do our best anyways to get to all of them. I know oh my god, there's so many, but we're gonna really try.
Do you see a good one? Do you want to touch on one right now?
Let me pick out a good one. But I want to reiterate one more time, guys. We love having you on. Thank you so much. But please, I keep seeing you're talking about test questions that were given today, the specific content material. We ask you one more time, please do not post any SAT test question content. So we do not want that. All right. So I see one here. Somebody is asking about Juice again, is asking about, will December be hard? Also, somebody else pointed out that they saw multiple repeats from the October SAT in terms of questions that they saw this time, which is very interesting. I took it in October as well. I did not notice that, but that's fascinating. Except 5 repeats. But anyways, Juice asks, is December going to be this hard or as hard as the November one or whatever? And Laura, you can chime in too with your thoughts. But look, assuming things have stayed relatively the same in terms of the College Board's process and in terms of difficulty of tests and whatnot, remember, unless something's going on behind the scenes that they haven't disclosed, they are not curving these tests, meaning looking at the test results afterwards and then assigning a scaled score based on how people have done. That's allegedly not what they do based on what they post on the website. They do a process called equating, which means they predetermine the scaled scoring and the curve ahead of time based on their perceived difficulty of the test. So they'll have their internal team look at it and be like, all right, compared to October, this is maybe 5% harder. So let's adjust the curve accordingly. My point in telling you this is you should not be concerned in the difficulty of the test because ideally the College Board has already adjusted for the perceived difficulty in the scaling of the score. So it shouldn't even be in your mind. Now, if it is more difficult, I do like to think that that's actually a benefit to most students because the scaling will be more favorable and maybe you might do a little bit better on a harder test just because you might, if you can cover that gap of the difference in questions that you would normally get right, maybe you do a little bit better and you have more room to bring your score up. So anyways, I'm just saying as a general matter, these are not questions that you should even concern yourself with. Laura, what do you think? Do you agree with me?
I 110% agree with you. Everything that you just said, yes. I have nothing to add. That was perfect.
Yeah, it's like that movie. What's that movie? Old School, where the guy gives the answer to the debate, and he's like, I can't respond to that. That was a perfect answer. He's like, what did I say? I just blacked out. What did I say? What did I say? Yeah, it's like that. Okay, let's see if we've got any other. Okay, somebody said Haroon Nadeem said the person next to me had a different math module 1 than me. Is that normal? Yeah, that's exactly what we were just talking about. That, like Laura said, they've added all these questions, parent questions, and then different child questions, so probably the same principles. I think now, because of the digital nature, it's very easy for the College Board to plug and play in terms of, giving people varied tests. So it's a lot harder to probably like collaborate and look at other people's things. So I think that's very
Yeah.
normal. I don't think you should look at that as a positive or negative,
Yeah, and I didn't add this, but another thing that College Board said was they're adding thousands of new questions every year to the question bank. Thousands. We also got a piece of kind of, unfortunate news. We were anticipating them adding 2 new tests to Blue Book before the end of the year. That's what they had promised us back in June.
Yeah, they did.
Unfortunately, they changed that. Now they're the next 2 tests for Blue Book will be in the spring. So fingers crossed it comes before the March test. That would be great. But
Yeah.
yeah, we're not going to get them before the end of 2024.
I didn't know that. All right, that's news to
Yeah.
me. That's really
Mhm.
disappointing.
I
That's really
know.
disappointing. But I guess it is what it is. What are we
It
gonna do?
is. I mean, I've been using the PSAT test even. So
Oh yeah, me too.
There was a PSAT test too that I
Mhm.
hadn't looked at. So to prepare for this test today, I went in and I did the PSAT test too. I practiced like my new reading strategy and everything, and it was great. The PSAT questions are great to use. So if you haven't used one of the PSAT tests in Blue Book, I would highly recommend it.
Yeah, 100%. I would be curious to know, guys, in the comments, let us know, what did you think of the difficulty of today's test, especially on
Mhm.
the math, but also verbal, of course. I'm just curious to know more specifically for the math, but like, how did you feel about the difficulty level of today compared to when you took the PSAT, assuming you've already taken it for this year? I have heard in the math in particular that students felt that the SAT today, the math section, was much more difficult than the PSAT, but
Yes.
curious to know what
Yes.
other people think.
I also heard that my student that I was doing that cram session with last night, she took the PSAT and she texted me, and she actually applied the new reading strategy as well on the PSAT. She's like, it went really well. I had all this extra time left, but she took the SAT today as well, and we were texting after, and she definitely said that she was a lot tighter on time on the SAT. So I think for her the PSAT was easier than the SAT
Yeah, I
for
think that's
sure.
yeah, I think that's the general
Mhm.
consensus. I'm
Yeah.
just scrolling through some of these older questions. People said, okay, hold on, November SAT wasn't that difficult. I mean, again, it probably varies based on which particular permutation you had.
Yeah.
Let me see.
One thing I'll say right now, and I would love to hear you guys in the chat chime in on this. The vocab was easy on my test today. I was very surprised. There was not one vocab question that I got where I didn't know the words. And
I
I feel
would
like,
Yeah, go ahead.
did you feel the same way?
Yeah, I did. I'm trying to think back. Trying to think back. Was there any? There was. I think maybe there was one that gave me pause. It
Yeah,
was.
same. And it was more for the context because there was 2 words that could
Yeah,
potentially fit. So
yeah. It
I
was.
did have to think it through and like figure out what they wanted.
I remember the word now. I'm not going to say it because I don't want to give the content away, but I remember the word
Right.
now. And it was again same thing as Laura's mentioning. It wasn't that I didn't know the definitions of the word choices. I just had to think. I think I got it right, but I don't know. The ones that I'm pretty sure where I missed were some of the what's the main idea, or what sentence might go logically next to like bolster this on mod 2. I think, let's see. I think I got mod 1 completely right, but mod 2 for the English, I think there was some problems that I rushed at the end that I for sure just totally guessed and missed. I thought, but I think the verbal from October, me personally, again, just with the test that I took, I thought it was harder than this one.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, yeah. On the flip side with the math, one thing that I had to catch myself on, there was a question, it was on mod 1. It
Mhm.
was towards the end. It was like number 21 or 22, and I got it pretty quickly. And when you get to the end of module 1, those questions aren't that easy, where
Mhm.
I kind of caught myself and I'm like, "Oh, like this was too easy for me. Like this is a red flag." And so I flagged it and went back to it later and then realized that there was a twist and a curveball to it, and I caught it and fixed it. So that was kind of interesting too. It's like just being mindful of how the test layout is and like kind of anticipating the difficulty level. I think that that's so important.
Mhm.
You know,
I
did you
love
have
that.
anything like that?
Well, I was just gonna say that I love that you did that because I tell my students that all the time. Just be mindful, especially even a mod one when you get to questions 15 and above. Like, hey, if something seems a little too good to be true, just double check it. Doesn't 100% mean you did something wrong or you made a silly mistake, but double check. And they're setting traps actively in that point where there might be an answer that seems perfectly correct, but they were asking for X plus 5 instead of X. So they get both of those options. So those are things to look out for. I don't believe, if I remember correctly, when I checked everything, I don't believe I changed anything from my original answer. I'm just trying to think if that's 100% accurate. Wait, give me 1 second. I think everything that I'd put down on my initial pass, I kept. So who knows what that means? I still you never know, right? I still made a mistake. But I guess we'll find out in 13 days. But yeah, that's my recollection that everything kind of stayed as it was.
Do you think you got a perfect score on the math?
I mean, I would have to assume so, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, yeah, there was not one single question that I think I got wrong, but I guess we'll find out in 13 days. I got one last time in October, so hopefully this time as well.
I know, that's awesome. Have you ever gone into an official test and not gotten a perfect score on the math?
One time. And
Oh,
so
yeah? When was that?
it's caught on camera. It was in 2019 maybe or 20 I don't remember oh no, it was 2018. I remember. It was 2018 because I think I took the old official one like 6 times or something. So I got an 800 on 5 of those, and then one of them I got a 790. So I can tell you the exact problem. I still will always remember it. And I was so sure I got it perfect. So I was opening the test and then I saw the 790. You see my reaction on camera. I'm like, what the heck happened? So I'm looking through, and this is before when they used to show you all the questions, right? If you order the QAS report. And what it was calculating the volume of a cone. Guess what formula I used?
The volume of a pyramid?
Cylinder.
Or a cylinder? Oh, a
Yeah.
cylinder.
So I used the volume of a cylinder. I don't know
Okay.
why. And
Uh-huh.
of course, they had the answer there if you use the volume of a cylinder. So I was missing the 1/3, right? And so they had that exact answer. And when I did it again, because I did the problem twice, it wasn't even hard. It was easy. It was a medium level problem. So it's just plug and chug. I just literally wasn't thinking, and I picked the wrong formula. Then when I redid it, I used the same formula, and I got it wrong. So I always remember that problem. It got me.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that's probably the biggest, pitfall for high flyers on this test, quite honestly. Like, if you are someone capable of getting a perfect score or close to it, like in my experience working with students like that, those are the types of questions they miss. Because
Yeah.
it's like your brain goes on autopilot and you're like,
So
this is
true.
so easy. I can do this, and then you're not like being mindful and present in the problem. Like, I've made tons
Yeah.
of careless mistakes in the past just because I'm like, "Oh, I got this," like this is easy.
For
So
sure.
just
And
yeah,
I
go ahead.
try not to fall into those traps anymore. I try to give every problem my full
Mhm.
attention, and be
Mhm.
really, really careful. But yeah, but we'll see. And I think that this is why. Okay, so for you guys listening, obviously my objective is every time I take this test, if I take it 5 times, if I take it 10 times, I will view it as for me, okay? And this is not what you guys should view. You guys shouldn't view it this way, but for me, with the amount of hours I put in, with how dedicated I am to like math education in general, yeah, it's a failure if I even get 1 out of 10 and I don't get a perfect score. That's how I look at it. But because of that, I take it very, very seriously. So like I'm not just going in and blasting through it and then chilling for the last like 20 minutes or 15 minutes if I have extra time. Like I'm going through very, very, very carefully. So the takeaway from that is that if you put in enough time and if you have really good mastery of the concepts and you're still kind of off by a little bit, it's probably that little extra element of being like, nah, I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to use every last second and minute to be extra diligent. Just like Laura was saying before, right? That grit, that mental willingness to just put in, to exert every bit of energy you have to make sure you've triple checked and gotten everything right. That's going to be, I still can't guarantee, we still can't guarantee that you'll get a perfect score, but I think that's going to be the keys, as Laura said, for the high flyers who are shooting for that, and maybe are at a 780 and trying to get to an 800. That's how you level
Mhm.
up.
Yeah, and you level up in your practices. So I tell all my students practice as if it's the real thing,
Mhm, mhm.
and that's where you build those test taking habits. So if you start going through your questions after you're done on your practices with your extra time,
Yes.
that's how you can get an accurate indication of what you're going to score, and that's how you can also get used to using the full time and catching your mistakes. Don't
Mhm.
wait till the real test to start to implement those things. Like
100%.
it's just like, a lot of you guys can relate to this stuff with sports. I mean, if you're an athlete and you want to, maybe you play basketball, you want to do a reverse layup in the game, please practice a reverse layup before the game. Do you know what I
100%.
mean? Like, don't go in the
Mhm.
game and then try to do a reverse layup. You're going to clown yourself.
Yeah,
You got to get ready for that.
there was a double spinning back fist knockout last week in UFC 308, and I was like, "How the heck did that guy pull that off?" And my buddy Justin, who's a professional fighter, was like, "Actually, people do that all the time. People do that all the time in sparring. It's a natural move." So, anyways, the guy who did it, yeah, he probably practiced it a bunch of times, and that's why he landed it. There was one other point, that just came to my mind. Oh yeah, another thing that I found again by accident by creating my YouTube channel. Laura's probably found this by creating her YouTube channel. One thing that has actually helped me get to like this level where, I'm walking out of every test feeling confident that I probably got an 800, not 100%, but like fairly confident, right? Taking the test I'm not saying you have to start a YouTube channel and like do all this on camera, but taking the test with eyeballs on you, okay, where you're kind of performing. This might not be available to everybody, but like I'll do this. I try to mimic that with some of my students. Sometimes I'll have them take a practice test, or one of our sessions will be literally me watching everything they're doing and listening to what they're doing, having them talk out loud, and I'm observing them step by step, maybe giving them a little nudge here, there. Hey, have you thought about using Desmos? Have you thought about pulling up the reference sheet? Have you know what I mean? And that practice, that dedicated hard practice with like eyeballs on you, gives you a little bit of the nerves and that anxiety maybe to like somewhat replicate the actual testing environment. I think it makes it keeps you more tuned in to the test and gives you better practice. I'm not saying you have to do every test with eyeballs on you, but I love that as helping my students out.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that too. That's great. I saw a bunch of questions come through where people were saying, I got this many wrong. What would I score?
Mm,
Right. It's hard to drill down on that. There is a website, albert.io, where some of you guys might have heard of it. You can go there and put how many you got wrong, and then it will give you a score estimate for the digital SAT, but it's rudimentary. So, it's just an estimate. Every test
yeah.
is going to be a little bit different. And it also depends on what kinds of questions you're missing,
Mhm.
because they're valued differently based on difficulty. The algorithm's really hard to drill down on now. It's not the
Yeah.
same as it was on the paper test. That was much more predictable. But I
Yeah.
would try the albert.io digital calculator. I mean, Huzefa, do you have any other suggestions?
No, because I'd say the best gauge you could have, because I don't know how. I'd love to know what Albert IO how they do it, how they predict it. Have they
Yeah,
set up a complex math model or a very simple like linear model? I would bet the latter. I would bet the
I
latter.
think so
That's just my
too.
that's just my
I think
feeling.
so too. Yep.
But if you really want to toy around with it, what I would say is this would require us to take a little bit of due diligence, but you could go into the existing 6 practice tests and try getting a variation of questions right and wrong, especially based on difficulty. So you can see like the difficulty rating of the questions and whatnot. And you could probably come closer, I think, that way, in terms of what you might actually get on the real test. That would be what I would say in terms of like trying to test that and figure that out. But maybe there's another option. But yeah, I don't know. There's not a lot of transparency right now in how the tests are being scored. We do know that they are assigning different point values based on difficulty because they've told us that. But the College Board has disclosed that. But how they're doing it, we have no idea.
Well, and to piggyback off of that, guys, when you get your score reports back, take it with a grain of salt to a certain extent, because there have been some student score reports that have come back where all 7 bars are filled in for Geo and Trig, and they didn't miss any math questions. So, it's just, it gives you, I guess, like kind of a general idea of certain areas that you need to work on, but it's certainly not perfected. And I have so many parents and students call me, Huzefa, you probably have the same experience. And they're like, oh, I missed one bar here. Like, what does this even mean? You know, and I'm
Yeah, I
trying to
don't know.
explain it to them. I'm like, well, one bar might mean you missed one or two
Yeah.
questions. And it's just kind of hard to drill down on that. So yeah, take that with a grain of salt when you get that score report back.
Yeah.
Um,
And
it's better to just go into keep doing questions, right? Don't you think that's the best way to figure out where your weaknesses are more than just looking at, oh, I missed one bar in
of
geo and trig, right?
Of course it is. Also, too,
Mhm.
remember this hybrid problems. The high difficulty problems are hybrids almost always. We have, so common are, they might, well, I guess this would all be under geometry and algebra, but like, or geometry and trigonometry, but like you have questions that will have hybrids of a little bit of algebra, a little bit of geometry. How they classify it might be the more dominant one. We don't know. We don't know. So even if you get it, you're getting something wrong in geometry and trigonometry, and you're like, wait, normally I get all those right. Maybe there's an algebraic component that you missed. So it's not the geometry or trigonometry that you're deficient in. So there's just a lot of these things. Like I just don't think there's in terms of prep, I just don't think there's a ton of value in the score reports now, and just being honest. But like Laura said, oh my God, you get so much more value from drilling the question bank, from drilling practice tests, what other resources you're using. Can I give a quick shout out to the practice
Yeah.
resource that I'm partnering with? Okay. So
Yes, yes.
I just want to put this out there too. So the resource that and I'll put it in the chat right here. It's called the SAT Crash Course, SAT Crash Course. So in full disclosure, you can, I have partnered with them, and I have a code that will give you a discount. It's Scalar, all caps. And you'll get 20% off if you do use it. You can buy 1, 5, or 10 practice tests. You can buy a bundle like that. And so I'm telling you this because I want to be honest about my relationship with them. And I also do get a rev share when you use that code. But I partnered with them because I believe so much in the resource. So I would have never partnered with them if I didn't think their tests were very high quality, which I think they are. Moreover, I have video explanations for the 10 practice tests. That's 660 video explanations I custom created for them that you can't find anywhere else. So again, that comes in if you're looking for really, really good practice resources. The reason why I want to talk about it right now, and I talked about it again back in October, is because now coming out of the test, I feel even better that it's a fantastic resource and it's well aligned to the content that you're actually going to see on the real SAT. I think they've done their due diligence. I think they continue to do that. So if you're looking for practice resources or practice tests in particular, I highly recommend the SAT Crash Course. Just want to put that out there.
Nice. I'm interested.
Yeah,
Very
you should
good.
check it
Yeah.
out and tell me what you think too.
Totally, totally.
It's an
Yeah.
evolving thing. Yeah. Oh yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, we've had tons of resources. We were just talking about on the phone. So
Yeah,
you guys like there's nothing, I mean, not to knock any other resources, but I always start with College Board official
for
questions
sure,
first.
for
But
sure.
there's definitely good third-party resources out there, but they're not all created equal. So
Nope.
just because you're getting a third-party resource doesn't mean it's good. So like, definitely do your due diligence, listen to experts like us, make sure that you're picking high quality materials because the materials you prep from, it's really important.
So important. And
Mhm.
I'm not going to name a specific name, but there was a conference I went to a few weeks ago, and I did see a prototype of another company that's trying to throw their hat into the ring. And I mean, I was just shocked at how off the mark the math was. And obviously it's like within the realm of like the math concepts, hey, there's like linear inequalities on there, and there's linear inequalities are like in the, you know what I mean? But I was just like, they have not done their homework, and nobody would. And if you're a kid coming in to buy this practice bundle of practice tests, you wouldn't know the difference. And that's not any fault of yours. It's just like, you gotta take these practice tests, not just once, not just twice, but probably like 10 times to really get your head around what's being tested. Drill down you have to have such a deep understanding of all the intricacies to really be able to tell the difference between like great practice resource and good practice resource, just that distinction. So anyways, you can lean on if you have a tutor that you've hired, hopefully they're dialed in and they'll know the difference and they can help guide you. Obviously, we've done breakdowns of content as well on our channel, so you can also lean on us for that. But yeah, just be really careful.
Yeah, and I don't like to talk badly about other people in our industry, but I will say there are a lot of tutors out there that don't know what's going on with this new digital SAT. And I've seen comments and like on my channel, oh, my tutor said this, my tutor said that. Like a student had commented the other day about a question they saw on the test, and the tutor knew exactly what the answer was to it. So they're not even aware that they're making all these unique questions and there's variations and things like that. So be careful when you're selecting your tutor as well, because I think that if it were me and if I was a student and I was looking for a tutor this day and age, I would want somebody that is eating, breathing, sleeping, living this test, not someone that's just doing it on the side,
Yep.
and they have a day job. So you want someone that's in this test 24/7, that's an expert. So, I'm not saying you need to come to either one of us. There's lots of great tutors out there, but make sure you're picking a good one that knows what they're doing.
100%. 100%.
Mhm.
Sanvi, by the way, Sanvi said he spent $3,000 on tutoring and it was no help. Sanvi, I'd love to know more details. Like, what did your tutor have you do? Give us some more details. What practice materials did you use? How many practice tests did you take? So I mean, that's if that's really what happened, that's pretty sad because that's a lot of money. And man, I don't know, but yeah, can you give us more details and maybe we can use your story to help guide some other people as well?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
somebody said,
Sorry to hear that.
yeah.
Go ahead.
So, and then Neha says, I feel like when I took the practice test, I had time remaining at the end, but during the actual test, I couldn't even get time to check my answers. Is that, and Neha, give us more details if you're talking about math, English, or both. One thing the first question I have is how many did you take? Did you take 2 practice tests? Did you take 1, or did you take everything plus a lot of other things? Because you're going to need a larger sample space to really have a good comparison. That's the first thing. Number 2, how are your nerves on test day? That could also play a role as well. So yeah, if you could give us some more context, I'd love to see that. I
Yeah, I
spam
did
Taylor.
a
Sorry.
wait, what were you saying?
I,
No,
I,
no, go
I was
ahead, go
gonna I
ahead.
was gonna read this comment because it is complimenting my channel, so I want to read it. He said, Kevin says I spammed Scalar and improved from 600 on PSAT to PSAT 10 to 79. Yeah, my first SAT in the math. I'm assuming. Let's go.
Wow, that's
Yeah, and by the way, we have tons of
awesome.
free content on our channel. So at a minimum, you should be using our channels for free content, even if you can't afford tutoring. And this is another story. I've got tons of stories like this where people have improved their score just from watching videos. It just depends on your mentality and your work ethic. And are you going to be fine on a self-sufficient basis? A lot of you out there might be. One time I had a parent ask me, be like, hey, you got all this stuff on YouTube for free. And but we're thinking about hiring you. Like, he was a VC guy. So he's all about like companies pitching to him
Oh
and
yeah.
startups. And I was like, he's like, so tell
Uh-huh.
me, pitch to me. Like, you're pitching to me. Why should I hire you? Why, what? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, maybe you shouldn't hire me. I have no clue. Like, maybe if the video content's enough and your daughter can do it on her own, I say just roll with that. Cause I have lots of students that are super successful at that. But really what it comes down to is, do you want the supervision? Do you want the guidance? Do you want to be able to ask me anything you want throughout the way? Do you want me to
Right.
curate your entire process for you and all those different things, which I would love to do, but I don't know if that's the right fit for everybody. And there might be some of you out there that are like, nah, I can dial it in, I can create my study plan myself, and then I'll supplement with your videos. What do you think? Do you agree?
Yeah, I do. And to be honest, I mean, you're gonna have to tell me if you're in the same boat, but I'm so booked out. Like I couldn't even take you one on one if I wanted to right now. I'm sorry. But we do have teams. I know Huzefa has a team of tutors
Mhm.
as well that we train, that we mentor, that we help like learn how to teach a test the same way as us. So if you do want one-on-one tutoring, we have that available. But yeah, we're kind of a hot commodity, right? Like we're kind of hard to come by.
Look, this is, and I think I imagine I'm speaking for Laura as well when I say this. We're in this game because we love it and we love to
Mhm.
help people. And I think we're
Yeah.
dialed into our true purpose on this planet, or at least a portion thereof, which is helping and connecting people, especially in these areas where kids get a lot of anxiety and they want help and they're looking for help actively. So
Yeah.
we're more than happy to work with you. I will say, in terms of my team, like, one of the things I strive to do is just like Laura mentioned, right? She said, you want to find people that are in this for real, not just as a side thing or whatever, that are passionate about it. And that's what I can say in terms of vouching for my tutors, is I pick people like me that are obsessive about it, that enjoy it, that love to work with students. And that's it. And all I ask is, if you do work with me or one of my people, you want to be there. You're not being forced to come. You want to be there as well. And you're going to put in all you got.
That's the key. I swear it's a collaboration, you know, because you've got to want it too. We give you practices to do. You've got to put in the work, you know, like we can show you and give you the tools to succeed, but you've got to want it. Shout out to Trent Brog, by the way. So he said
I
spam
saw
Laura
that.
vids and saw a question on congruent triangles that was in predictions video
Let's
and
go.
got it right. Let's
Let's
go.
go.
Let's
Let's go.
go. See, that makes me so happy. Don't you love
Oh
that?
yeah.
Like knowing that like we're like helping and impacting, you know, like I've never even met him, but like
Oh, it's the
my
best.
video helped him. It's amazing.
It's the best thing
It
ever.
makes me so happy.
By the way, Sunvi did respond about my
Okay.
questions about the tutoring. So let's read that real quick. So Sunvi says, here's my experience. I went to a tutoring center where they just made a curriculum and had the tutors go through it. However, they weren't all that great and reflect. Yeah, I mean, this is like I've heard this same narrative a million times. I hate to say it, but yeah, maybe gosh. Yeah, maybe you just went to a company where they're not really that dialed in, and I would explore other options. But the other thing I would say, like Sunvi, I want to know how many practice tests did you take on your own? That's also an important question. And if you are going to go again, if you're deciding not to hire tutors or stick with the same center because you already invested money, then I would just say for you, your objective needs to be to just drill practice like crazy. Even if they're not or the sessions aren't helping as much, you need to drill practice, look through video resources that you can source on YouTube or other things. Like you can find a lot of free stuff as well, and hit it again and hit it harder this time.
Yeah. I'm feeling the love in the chat. Wow. Thanks, guys. I'm glad you like that document, the math questions. Did you see Huzefa the 150 math questions document we've got? They're like the hard, like the challenge
No,
ones.
no,
I'll
I got to
share
check it
that
out.
with you. I'll share
Yeah.
that with you. It's awesome. It's
And
really, really good.
are they from
Um,
College Board questions?
They're like variations. So they're like, you know, designed like the College Board ones that have been showing up on module 2, but they're a little bit different, but they're like all in one document, which is so
Oh
amazing.
my
So
God.
like,
I want to see this. I want to see this.
yeah, like I've been going through it with like all my students that want to score above a 700 on the math. And so yeah, it's money. I love it.
Okay,
Um
amazing. And I did want to say, Laura, I have to kind of go because I got a
Yeah,
session
well, I was
starting
just
in
gonna
6 minutes.
say, I mean, we're running on an hour. We should probably wrap it up, right?
Yeah. Guys,
Okay.
let us know. Did you enjoy this? If you liked it, maybe you can click the like button. Who knows? You can subscribe if you're not subscribed. But yeah, tell us what you think. And if you want to see us do more videos together, I tell Laura I want to do more videos with her. She normally rejects my offers and says she doesn't want to do it with me. But what do you guys want to see?
All right. Thanks, guys, so much for watching. We really enjoyed this. Hope you guys have a great rest of the day and let us know once you get your score in a couple weeks how you did.
Yeah.
All
All right.
right.
Good luck,
Bye,
everybody. Have a great rest of your
everybody.
weekend. Peace.
Bye.